I grew up very sheltered, not allowed to connect with the outside world, not allowed to form meaningful connections with people. I got glimpses of people I was curious about during my time in school, but couldn't find it in me to grow attached, which I find has its benefits, but as a result, I often felt overwhelmed by an immense feeling of loneliness. I wanted nothing more than to feel like I had my person, like I was someone's person, and that longing seeped into adulthood. During a time where I went no contact with most of my family and moved to a new city where I knew no one, it became harder than ever to not only find those meaningful connections, but also maintain them. And it's been a journey. I had my fair share of feeling lonely by the time I turned 21, and that's when I decided that something really needed to change. I was coming out of a long-term relationship at the time, and I felt like with it being my first serious relationship, I undermined the importance of having my own life and sustaining my own friendships outside of the friends I shared with my partner at the time. So by the time we broke things off, I was ready for something different. I really feel like a friendship 101 would have been super helpful for me at the time. I'm not saying that just because I was in a relationship, I wasn't trying to formulate friendships, but like I mentioned, it was something that was incredibly hard for me to sustain. So if I had to put making friends and building community into a formula, this is what the formula would be for me. Number one, don't be afraid to reconnect. So I had gotten no contact with my family, and I hadn't spoken to my extended family in about 2 years. And that is a very long time for somebody to not hear from you. Of course, like, they saw me on social media and I saw them on social media, so I knew everything was well, everything was fine. I was living with my partner at the time, and I didn't have much money or a car or any source of stability on my own to be able to survive when I got out of that. I had no one to turn to, and that's when the tie that I thought I severed with my family needed to be resealed. And so I reached out for the first time in years, and I was scared because I felt like I had a valid justification for having gone no contact, and I thought that if I broke that no contact, then I would be betraying myself in some way. But I was wrong. I think that wanting to build community means being open-hearted and open-minded and being prepared and willing to forgive. Forgiveness is not this selfless thing that you're doing for the sake and comfort of the people around you. Forgiveness is something that you choose to do for yourself so that you can allow yourself the grace to move on and move forward with a more open heart. So the very first members of the community that I was trying to form was my family. Now, I was in a new city, but because of social media and because this new city wasn't far from the other cities that I grew up in, I was always surrounded by familiar faces. So while maybe I hadn't reached a point where I could just meet a stranger off the street and become their friend, I was comfortable enough to reach out to people that I may have worked with in the past or went to school with in the past, people whose energy stood out to me, people who I felt I had things in common, and then I had to find the courage to reach out for that initial hangout. It paid off because slowly my newly found community went from being these 5-6 extended family members to now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that I may have had small bonds with in the past, but now I was giving myself the chance to reconstruct those bonds, form stronger bonds. I know that there might be a lot of shame or embarrassment or even just this hesitance to want to reach out to friends or acquaintances from the past. It's like, okay, yeah, I knew you, but what if you think I'm weird because we weren't really getting along well at the time? And I think the beautiful thing about life is that there's no set timeline for when things are meant to happen. so we crossed paths in the past, that doesn't mean that that was the time that we were meant to be friends necessarily. Maybe the time is now. Number 2, reframing my mindset. For a really long time, it was hard for me to even want to be friends with people. I used to be super duper strict, and I was operating under this mentality because I was on a spiritual journey that I had to be friends with people who were a direct reflection of where I was at in my spiritual journey, or if not, in a more, I guess you could say, advanced level than me, so that I can grow and I can learn from them, and they have to serve me in some way, shape, or form. If not, they're not helping me grow as an individual, then the friendship is not worth pursuing. But fact of the matter is, growth is a choice, and whether the experience is healthy or unhealthy, it does give you the opportunity to grow, and it's up to you to take that opportunity in stride. And friendships don't have to be transactional. Like, I don't have to anticipate my friend helping me evolve spiritually. That's not for them to do, you know. And the ironic thing about a spiritual journey is that everything around you is meant to help you grow, but intentionally, you know, refusing to want to be friends with certain people because I didn't know how they would help me grow at the time, that was very ignorant, and I was doing myself a disservice. So I shifted my mentality from wanting to basically be friends with people that felt like a mirror of me, to understanding that everybody serves their purpose, and that doesn't have to be any more or any less fulfilling than what my ideal friendship looked like. I literally had to release all expectations. So now I have friends that create a balance for me in different areas of my life. I have friends that like to go out and party and dance and have a good time, and I like to go out and party and dance and have a good time. It doesn't consume me, but it doesn't consume them either. So I know who to call when I want to do those things. Now I have friends that are high maintenance and I can go get my nails done with. I have friends that are very active and have active lifestyles. So when I'm in a chapter of my life or during a time of the month where I'm working out regularly and I don't want to work out alone, I have a friend to call for that. I have friends whose spiritual beliefs do align with mine, and I have friends whose spiritual beliefs do not. And being surrounded by so many people from so many different walks of life and so many different experiences and so many different personality types, archetypes, preferences helps me grow still, because I am given the opportunity to be challenged, step out of my comfort zone, and all in all, learn constantly all the time. So really being willing to be open-minded to explore friendships outside of what my set definition of an ideal friend was really helpful, and it really helped my community grow. Number 3, understand what you can handle. One part of having friends and making friends is maintaining those friends. And I used to be somebody who got overstimulated and overwhelmed very quickly because I didn't know how to balance having a social life with my individual life. Because I have my friends and then I have my family, and it just felt like too much to keep up with. I took advantage of the time where I was finding the courage to reach out to those people and start building those bonds, and you know, that in between time between those first hangouts, I really took that time to be really reflective and really learn how my body and my mind operates throughout the month. So now I use my cycle as a guideline as to when is a good time to hang out. I did test the waters a bit. There were times where I hung out almost every day in one week. There were times where I didn't hang out at all in one week, but it was that trial and error that kind of helped me learn myself and learn what it was that I could handle. So now I know if I want to make plans, I definitely don't want to make plans when I'm in my luteal or when I'm on my cycle, unless it's like holidays or important dates. Definitely don't want to miss out on those. So those are the only things that I make exceptions for, and it's in a way that still falls within my boundaries, so I'm not prolonging that time. I'm not doing more than I know that I can in that moment. Mostly try to schedule my hangouts ahead of time. Spontaneity doesn't really work for me well, because if I make last minute plans and I'm enjoying myself in that very moment, I'm not sure how it's going to affect me later on in the week, and usually I'm faced with fatigue because it wasn't planned out well. I know that no matter when I'm hanging out or what kind of hangout it is, I know that I like to be home latest by midnight, preferably 11, so I make sure to schedule my hangouts, if they're evening hangouts, a little bit earlier so we have enough time in the evening to enjoy each other's company without it feeling like a sacrifice to any of our boundaries. I really took sitting down and doing a lot of inventory and clearly defining what worked for me and what didn't work for me in order for me to be able to create the right amount of balance between my social life, how I cater to my family, and how I cater to myself. But it was definitely worth it, and I still haven't mastered it, to be honest, but I'm learning, I'm getting there. Number 4, be consistent, authentic, and reciprocal. When I was younger and I was making friends and I was putting myself out there, I felt like I had to be a mirror of the people that I was trying to be friends with in order to be accepted, in order to build more meaningful bonds. But the more that I reflected the people I was spending time with, the further and further I strayed away from myself, and the more inauthentic the friendship became, because I don't really think anybody wants to be surrounded by yes men. People need to be challenged, people want to be challenged. So definitely show up authentically as yourself. I know that I'm a giver. I like to give to my community, and it's up to me to set the right boundaries so that I'm not overstepping and I'm not overgiving and I'm not depleting myself while giving to others. But I know that no matter what kind of friendship it is, whether the person I'm friends with is a giver or not, I know for a fact that I love to give. And that won't change if the friendship is not healthy anymore, or like if the person is more of a receiver than a giver. I'm not going to change who I am to reflect that. But I do feel like being reciprocal is important. If my friend paid for our dinner last week, then next week I'm going to pay for a dinner too. And that's how we create a balance. I think being in community means at some point you're gonna have to give more than you anticipated. Be consistent. You can't just hang out and then never check in with that person after that, because that's not how you sustain a friendship. You're not going to feel the closest to the people that you're meeting after 1, 2, or even 3 hangouts. Sometimes you need to be spending time together so that you can get to know each other more deeply and you can continue to strengthen your bond. So being consistent in any way you can is super duper important. And it's not always easy. We're going to be facing obstacles throughout the entirety of our lives that kind of stop us and get in the way of us showing up consistently for the people that we care about. But the effort is so important, especially if you really want to be a part of a community. So don't be afraid to reconnect, reframe your mindset, understand what you can handle, and really learn yourself and your boundaries, and show up consistently, authentically, and be ready to reciprocate and understand what role it is that you play for your community. Anyways, thanks so much for joining me today. It is always a pleasure to sit down and chat and share bits and pieces of myself. Let me know in the comments where you're at in your journey of finding friends.